Financial reform has passed the House! Oh, thank God. Oh, everything's reformed now. Okay, now let's talk about how disastrous it is. No, I'm kidding. It's got some good sides and some bad sides. Shahien Nasiripour is going to join us from Huffington Post. He's been covering this very, very thoroughly, and we want to talk to him about what's good and bad in the bill. Shahien, welcome back to the Young Turks.
Thanks for having me on.
All right. So it passed today. I'm curious because the devil's definitely in the details in a bill like this. First, let's talk about the good sides. What got passed today that was positive?
Well, one of the positives, they passed the consumer. They passed a provision that would set up the Consumer Financial Protection Agency. Now, this is an agency that's dedicated solely to protecting consumers, from various abuses in the banking and credit card industry. So, egregious overdraft charges, these exploding option arm mortgage loans. The way it was previously is you had government regulators who were supposed to be looking out for consumers, but, critics say that they mostly looked out for the banks. So this new change is actually a really big deal because you'll have an agency that's solely dedicated to protecting consumers. That's actually pretty positive.
Yeah, that makes sense. Did they handle other sides of regulation reform, or was this just for the Consumer Protection Agency?
The bill overall?
Yeah, I mean, did they handle the other reforms that they had talked about that are not just this agency, or is that for another date?
No, they tried. It was a massive bill. It was something between 1,200 and 1,300 pages. It looked at everything from derivatives and how they're traded, to the credit rating agencies, to this new consumer agency, to investor protection. There are a host of things in this bill.
All right, so let's talk about derivatives for a quick second, because I'm going to come back to the Consumer Protection Agency. So what are the new rules on derivatives? Is it, did they set up the exchange where it's at least more transparent now?
A little bit. The way they set it up is, most trades are now going to have to go through exchanges and clearinghouses, which, on the face of it, that's supposed to make it more transparent. The problem is, there's a lot of loopholes in there. A lot of folks don't have to necessarily have their trades through clearinghouses and exchanges. They can just keep on trading like they were before, the crisis really exploded last fall. Just two guys on the phone trading with each other. And that was something that Wall Street really pushed for, and it's something that they got.
So I remember you had written about the $50 trillion loophole that was in there earlier. Is that still in there, or did they wind up taking that out?
No, I believe that's still in there. This was that $50 trillion. It's referring to derivatives. Essentially, companies that are betting on whether or not a particular currency or foreign exchange, if it's going to go up or down. So, they'll make their bets, presumably to hedge their risk. And Wall Street didn't want this to be subject to any kind of real regulation. They wanted it to stay as over the counter, essentially two guys on the phone trading with each other with really no paper trail and no oversight. And I believe that loophole is part of the bill.
And the credit ratings agencies, what were the reforms done in that regard?
So the credit rating agencies, it's actually one of the good things, believe it or not. I was speaking to some of the folks who were working on the bill, and they pointed out that one part of the bill that should be praised is the part that not only deals with the Consumer Protection Agency but also the credit rating agencies. What the bill calls for is a whole lot more transparency, and for the first time, it really enables folks to sue the credit rating agencies when the credit rating agencies screw up. That's a good thing. Credit rating agencies are pretty much batting 1,000 in court by saying that they're protected under the First Amendment. Thanks to this bill, if it becomes law, they can't really rely on that line of defense anymore.
So if an investor invests in something because they said it was AAA, and then they could show in court that the credit rating agency knew it wasn't AAA, but they did it because they get paid by the guys who they're rating, which is a ridiculous system, then they could win and say, okay, now you owe me money because your credit rating was ridiculous. Is that
right?
Roughly right?
If they can prove that. I mean, it's a rough outline, but yeah, essentially, what they could do is, the effect it could have is it could make the credit rating agencies really think twice. Because, what it'll come down to is this really worth it if we could be sued over it? And to have someone think twice before they execute a trade or make a decision, that's, to me, I think that's a pretty good reform.
Shahien, but the system remains the same, where they're still getting paid by the guys that they're rating. Is that right?
That's their entire business model. They're still getting paid by the folks. They're still getting paid to rate bonds by the bond issuers. So if you accept the whole business model as a given, the rest of the bill dealing with credit rating agencies is strong.
Okay. And I don't. I think that they should have just completely redone it. But of course, Geithner wouldn't come within miles of my proposals. So, all right. So let's get to the bad side now. What's the downside? Because this stuff seems like, okay, maybe not perfect, but it looked like there's some positive stuff in there. What's the downside to the bill?
Well, the downside, I mean, from where I see it, and from what consumer advocates are telling me, is that it's just there are tons of loopholes in there and carve-outs. For example, this new consumer agency, it has the authority to write the rules of the game. So that power is no longer with the Fed, which largely didn't use it for about a decade and a half. It's now with this agency. Problem is, they can't really go in now and examine compliance by a lot of big banks. They can look at it for, they can examine, mortgage companies. They can examine the really big banks, but the medium-sized banks are almost off limits in terms of examinations. So what I'm hearing is it's great that we have this agency, but if they can't actually go out and check to see if the folks are playing by the rules, what's really the point?
Well, I would say so. You had this exchange that Perlmutter had with Barney Frank that was curious, because Perlmutter had introduced a couple of amendments. Tell us what those amendments were and why they had this talk on the floor of the House and what the implications of that are, because it might be huge.
Oh, right. That was just it. So Representative Perlmutter of Colorado, Democrat, member of the New Democrat Coalition, which is it's a pro-business coalition. Others call it a banker-friendly coalition. They certainly get a lot of money from Wall Street, from the banking industry. Perlmutter wanted to get this amendment in there that would have changed the bill with respect to this very thing we just talked about, giving this new agency the authority to actually go out and examine these banks to make sure they're compliant and essentially they're not screwing over consumers. So he tried to get this in. He tried twice, couldn't get it in, couldn't get the amendment passed. So what he did is he set up a deal, side deal almost, with Financial Services Chairman Barney Frank, who's pretty liberal, pretty progressive, and he's one of the guys who's really fighting for consumers and really fighting for homeowners. So they set up this deal where, while they were debating the bill on the House floor, Perlmutter asked, it was totally scripted, Perlmutter asks Frank, look, what exactly are we trying to do here with this agency? How do we want them to exercise their new authority? So Frank responds, essentially, he was set up, essentially responds with, well, we want this agency to focus on, the biggest of the big banks. The big banks, the 13, 14, $17 billion banks, and actually it's much higher than that. Those banks, we don't want the agency to waste their time and resources going after those guys. Let the other regulators handle them. The regulators don't have enough time or resources to go after these guys, so let's leave them alone. So essentially what that does is it tells future regulators and future Congresses that this is what Congress intended with this bill.
So when they go to court, what the courts will do oftentimes is look at legislative intent. So
right.
Even though the amendment didn't pass, if they thought that it was the intention of the legislature so that it be applied this way, in essence, Perlmutter winds up winning anyway. Now, why did Perlmutter want to do that? Because he receives a gigantic amount of money from the banks. The funny thing is, of course, the actual contributions that he receives from the banks is not gigantic. It's $1,000 here, $2,500 there. But it's incredible how easily you could buy and how cheaply you could buy a congressman. Shahien, as I saw his contributions, which he gets immediately after pushing for these amendments, I thought, well, why don't I go buy one of these politicians? I mean, I could raise $7,500, and then he'll be my lapdog. But that's not all, right? Because he's got family money in the banks. That's his other conflict of interest here. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Right. His ex-wife, who he divorced last year, she helped set up this bank in San Francisco. His father was also instrumental in helping to found this bank, and he also, him and his children, through family trusts, which his staff, they say he has no control over. They've got a couple $100,000 in stock holdings and bonds in like 3 or 4 banks, including one of the biggest banks in the country, U.S. Bancorp.
And the value of that is estimated to be as high as $480,000. So he's got a lot of money on the line as to why he doesn't want the banks regulated. And his wife's bank was under investigation, right?
It still is. It was under investigation by the FDIC, but it's still under sanction. Essentially, the bank that his wife helped set up, they weren't really the best bank. They weren't really the most prudent with their loans. The bank management wasn't the strongest. The board of directors wasn't really keeping a good eye out, and so government regulators had to come in and kind of beat them up a little bit.
All right, now, so let's understand that. I want everybody to refocus on that for a second, okay? Because here we have a congressman saying we shouldn't regulate the banks more, while his wife, he's got nearly $500,000 invested in banks, okay, in the stock of the banks, and his wife ran a bank, his ex-wife now, ran a bank that needed to be regulated because it was doing things wrong, and now it's been sanctioned. So, of course, he doesn't want the banks regulated because that exposes the things that they're doing wrong. Now, I mean, it's ridiculous. And I don't know why Barney Frank had to go out there and do this compromise with him. But actually, I partly do. It's because it's not just Perlmutter. If it was just Perlmutter, you just flick him away. But it's actually all these, what do they call them? The New Democrat Coalition? Tell us what they are.
The New Democrat Coalition.
Tell us what they are, Shahien. And we're talking to Shahien Nasiripour from Huffington Post, who covers financial news for them. Who are the new? What's the New Democrat Coalition, and why do they love the banks so much?
Well, it's a group of Democrats. They call themselves moderate Democrats. I think they themselves say they're very business friendly. They don't really style themselves as these liberal progressive Dems. But they get, a lot of them are on the House Financial Services Committee, and because of their membership of that committee, they get a lot of money from the financial services industry. So the big banks, the big broker-dealers, the mortgage brokers. I mean, anyone in the financial services industry is giving these guys money. And what some people have made the claim is that that money is helping the industry get influence. I don't know if that's true. I can't say that.
Okay, all right.
Some people make that argument.
You're trying to be a journalist there and remain objective. Okay. Yes, of course they're getting influence. Of course, the most obvious thing in the world. And Melissa Bean seems to be the worst of them. So what's Melissa Bean up to? She tried to water down the bill in another way. What was that?
That one was actually pretty interesting. So there's this concept of preemption, and essentially what it is when a state law conflicts with federal law, the federal law rules the land. So let's say the state of California wants to pass a law. A perfect example was EPA carbon emissions. With the EPA. So California and several other states took the lead, and they wanted to limit emissions. The EPA during the last administration stepped in and said no, our rule is different, and so they went to court. And and the whole thing was preemption, that federal law preempts conflicting state law. Well, that also applies to banking, and it applies to national banks. National banks are banks like Citibank, Bank of America, J.P. Morgan Chase, Wells Fargo. There are state banks and there are national banks, and so the national banks, they want to play by national rules because they operate in all 50 states and they operate everywhere. So what's happened over the past 100 years, but really accelerated over the past decade, is the national bank regulator, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, would often step in and issue these decisions that would preempt state laws that really try to beef up protections for consumers. So states and municipalities that try to, they try to cap ATM fees, for example, or they wanted to institute reforms with respect to mortgages, so folks couldn't, fly-by-night operation, couldn't originate a mortgage on Monday, sell it to a bank on Wednesday, have it chopped up and securitized on a Friday, and then just wash their hands clean. So, this has happened a lot over the past 5-6 years, and the OCC, time and time again, would step in on behalf of the banks, telling the states to back off. They even went to court on behalf of the banks several times, and 2 of those cases actually ended up in the Supreme Court, where you had the biggest banks in the country and this federal agency squaring off against state regulators and state attorneys general, consumer groups, law professors, academics, etc. So that was a state of play.
So, Shahien, did she wind up winning on this or no?
She wound up winning because President Obama and Democrats wanted to get rid of that. They wanted to reverse that trend. She enabled it to essentially, she enabled the situation to stay status quo.
All right, so now you can't, if you're a state and you want to regulate banks so they don't run amok, the federal government could step in and stop you, okay? Now, the thing is, now, if you don't trust Geithner's Treasury Department to run the federal regulators, right, which I don't, okay, wait till you get a load of the next Republican administration. Because under Bush, they'd go and as Shahien just pointed out, and say, this state can't regulate, and this state can't regulate, because they didn't want anybody regulating. And then the federal regulators wouldn't regulate, and then we got the crash that we got. So these loopholes are enormously important, and they're enormously damaging. And some protect the big banks, some protect the small banks, some protect the state banks, and then at the end, I don't really know who we regulate. So, all right, give us a sense, Shahien, at the end here of, I mean, was it terrible? Was it, no, we got some good things done, but it's imperfect? I mean, what are we looking at here at the end of the day? Okay,
well, if I may, just to clarify that last point, this whole thing of preemption, it really ramped up also under a Clinton appointee. So it wasn't just a Democrat-Republican thing. It may be more of a Wall Street thing, and Wall Street's got connections both in the Republican Party and the Democratic Party.
No question, they run the place.
So that was one thing. But the bill, it depends on who you ask. The reformers and advocates are going to say this new consumer agency, it's the highlight. We need this. This is great. The other stuff, we'll look the other way. You talk to other folks, and they'll say, look, the one thing that we needed to get right was derivatives, and we failed. So everything else doesn't really matter.
Well, I'm in that camp. So as far as the derivatives are concerned, is their main problem the loopholes? Or is their main problem, who cares if you put it on an exchange anyway? These things are going to blow up whether they're on an exchange or not. We didn't really do anything to actually regulate them.
Well, the thing is, if you put them on exchanges, that actually solves a lot of the problems that folks feel are going on and a lot of the shenanigans. The problem is they didn't put everything on exchanges. The problem is they have a lot of loopholes. And let's face it, Wall Street is smarter than Washington. So where there's a will, there's a way. And regulators are always 2, 3, 4, 5 steps behind. So if you create an inch of an opening, smart people are going to expand that to up to a mile. So, I mean, that's what you really got to look at here, I think.
All right. Shahien, Nasiripour, excellent reporting on what just passed in the House today in the financial reform package. We appreciate you joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right. We'll be right back.